Lupita Borja. I've been a nurse for 9 months. I work at the Cardiac Telemetry Unit at Intermountain Health.
My name is Kirsten Curtis. I've been a nurse for 9 years. I work at Intermountain Healthcare St. Vincent Hospital as a labor and delivery room nurse.
My name is Kara Fairbanks. I've been a nurse for 12 years. I work in the Psychiatric Services Department at Billings Clinic, and I have worked there for 12 years.
I'm Charlotte Harkins. I've been a nurse for about 16 years, and I currently work at Libby Health.
My name is Callie Lusk. I've been a nurse for a little over 5 years. I work at Billings Clinic Hospital in inpatient cancer care.
My name is Mary Jo Miller. I have been a nurse for 46 years and just recently retired. I have worked for Intermountain on the oncology floor and on mother newborn.
I'm Erin Mosnes. I've been a nurse for 2.5 years. I work at the Rehabilitation Hospital of Montana, and I am a floor nurse.
My name's Chris Tanner, and I have been a nurse for roughly 10 years, and I work in the intensive care unit at Intermountain.
I'm Joey Trawick. I've been a nurse for 16 years. I'm currently working at Billings Clinic in the post-anesthesia care unit.
I'm Becky Wagner. I've been a nurse for 19 years. I work at Stillwater Billings Clinic. I work in the ER, and I'm an acute care floor nurse. I work in endoscopy, and I'm a pediatric care champion.
I think I've always known that I wanted to be a nurse. I remember going to my pediatrician's office. You get your shots, your well child exam. And I remember it was just so scary, but the nurses there were so kind. They would hold your hand, give you a Band-Aid and a sucker. So they always just wanted to make you feel a little bit better. And I think that's what I've always wanted to do as well.
My grandpa always called me his little nurse when I was young. And I just like taking care of people, and I had a love in my heart for people who didn't have the best circumstances.
When I was in high school, I took a class called Occupational Health, and I knew from that moment that I wanted to be an RN.
I saw nurses working in the cardiac unit when I was an exercise physiologist with cardiac rehab, and they looked really busy. And it was so intriguing, the many things they got to do. I knew I wanted to be a nurse when I saw how they intervened in people's lives.
I knew I wanted to be a nurse when I was in high school, and my mom and my aunt were both in the medical field, and I watched them give loving, compassionate care, and I wanted to do the same.
I worked at a doctor's office in high school. My mom was an EMT, and I had a child that was born very sick and was in Denver Children's Hospital. And after seeing what the nurses were capable of and what they did, I decided I wanted to be a nurse.
I knew a long time ago I wanted to go into something where I got to take care of other people. Taking care of people fills my cup, and nursing does exactly that.
But it really solidified my career choice when my dad got in a car accident and he actually got flown over to Intermountain Health. The way the nurses treated us and treated my dad really solidified my career choice.
When I was 6 years old, I decided I wanted to be a nurse, and as I grew, I just kind of developed that passion.
Working as an EMT, watching them do so many amazing things as flight nurses and flight paramedics, I thought, boy, they're sharp people, and I want to be like them.
One of my most memorable nursing experiences was being able to go on the Montana Centennial Cattle Drive as part of the medical crew.
As a new nurse working in the emergency room, we had a young lady who was a new mom come in, and she had slid off the road into a canal and was able to be rescued out of her vehicle. We brought her back to the emergency room, did CPR on her for quite some time, and were able to get her heartbeat back. And she was able to come back and see us months later, and it was a very rewarding experience to see that.
Right after I became an LPN, all of my RNs were in report, and a lady come running through the ER doors and threw a limp 2-year-old in my arms. And it was up to me to decide whether this child was breathing or if she had a heartbeat. I immediately started CPR on her and eventually saved her life.
Well, COVID hit right when I started, so it was kind of sink or swim at that time. You just hit the ground running because it was kind of a crazy time when COVID hit.
When I first started in labor and delivery in Bozeman, we had a gal that came in that was laboring very quickly, and she had a baby faster than the doctor could get there. So a coworker and I delivered that baby. It was the moment that I realized how sacred and powerful birth is.
Kindness, compassion, being flexible. Nothing seems to go as planned in the hospital, so being flexible is really important.
In order to be a nurse, you have to have a really big heart. You have to have dedication, you have to be kind, caring, and empathetic.
People skills are important, and as a nurse, to be able to relate to folks and be able to make those connections with them, and that has brought me a long ways.
It takes attention to detail, compassion, not judgment, and advocating for your patient even when it's uncomfortable.
I would say a propensity for ADHD. Doing a lot of things at the same time. Being able to triage. This is important, that can wait, this is a fire.
It takes empathy and emotional intelligence. You really need to learn how to read a room. So we see people in crisis situations, whether they're homeless, couch surfing, living under the bridge, in abusive relationships. It really takes a special skill to counsel people in their need.
A critical thinker, caring, resourceful.
Teamwork, leadership, and problem solving.
The biggest thing is having a kind heart and loving other people.
Let it go, God's got this.
There's a rainbow after every storm.
I love Mother Teresa's quote. It's really long, but it's something to the effect of, if you're kind, people are going to say that you're doing it for your own reasons. Be kind anyway, because it was never about them. It was about you being true to God and your purposes. And man, I love that.
Treat others the way you would want to be treated.
My grandma used to tell me, "You're okay, the world's wrong."
It sounds simple, but kindness matters.
Well, my mom always said, remember who you are and what you stand for. And that rings true to me in a lot of the things I do.
You can learn critical skills and critical thinking, but don't lose your empathy.
My favorite quote is "Be yourself, everybody else is already taken" by Oscar Wilde.
A CNA and I were walking a patient out of the bathroom, and she wasn't moving, so I kept saying, "Take a step, take a step, take a step." She finally turned around and looked at me and said, "I can't, you're standing on my gown."
So I was pushing that patient down to get a CT scan. We thought she had a stroke, and I have 2 left feet, and I tripped over both of them, and I went face forward on the ground right in front of a doctor.
I was working on mother newborn, and I was 9 months pregnant myself. I was making rounds with the physician. We wore scrub tops. It had snaps all the way down. I put my hands in my pocket, and the top just split right open. We were in a patient room. The doctor looked over at me and said, "Mary Jo, you're just popping out all over the place."
When I was a new nurse, we had taken our patients out to the courtyard in psych where we can do recreation, get some air. The patient that we took out had been there for an extremely long amount of time. So just kind of being funny, I decided to climb a tree. I ended up falling out of the tree and I broke my foot.
I love it when people call me and say, "Hey, my dad's in the hospital," or "I've got a friend in the hospital," or "Can you come visit somebody?" Because I get to dress up as Welvis, sing a song, dance around, be lighthearted, because laughter, that kind of joy is the best medicine, baby. And you can count that to the bank.
I was working with a plunger from a syringe, and it had come off the end, and I had drawn up some stomach contents into this syringe and went to put the end back on, and as I put that end back on, it shot stomach contents all over the ceiling and all over the wall and all over my clothes, and it was quite the laugh.
I've taken a patient to the wrong room, and then the other patient comes and there was a gentleman just sitting there staring at her TV.
Working in a labor unit, I was putting a Foley catheter in a gal, and when I went to go push the fluid through, the syringe popped off and it splashed in my face, and the patient looked at me and said, "Oh, did my water break?" And I said, "I'm really sorry, it was just me."
I think patience is such a virtue, and it's needed in the healthcare field.
I grew up working in the fields, and it was something I did not enjoy. So my mom always said, if you don't want to do a job like this the rest of your life, you need to try harder. And it really helped me get through nursing school or tough moments in my life.
It's shift work. When you're done, you're done. Leave it, go home, come back the next day.
Don't give up and keep learning.
My director of nursing told me, you will never know it all, but what you do know, you need to share with others.
Good advice I've received is the importance of setting boundaries.
When you get to the end of your rope, tie a knot in it and hang on.
Go to work every day with a willing to learn attitude and an open mind.
Give yourself some grace.
The best piece of advice I've been given is to not be so hard on yourselves. Nurses tend to be pretty hard on themselves sometimes, so everybody makes mistakes.
I think the first time that a child came into the emergency room and was admitted into the hospital with suicidal thoughts, that was very, very difficult to deal with, and I can still remember all of those feelings.
When I was working on the oncology floor, I remember caring for a young mom in her 30s with small children and her husband. I was there that day when they had to say their final goodbyes to her. The little children were up on the bed kissing her goodbye. It was the hardest moment of my career.
We had a 3-year-old son, and I was pregnant with our second child, and we lost that child. And I could have been bitter or better, but God helped me to be better through that situation. And I was able to help other patients who were going to experience the same loss.
I was working in the ER and had a 17-year-old come in that was in a car accident that was actually dead on arrival. His mom lived in Wyoming and didn't even know he had left the house, and he was headed to Bozeman to see his dad. That was a rough day.
I've worked in a ton of places over the last 16 years, nursing homes, float pool, emergency department. By far, working on the COVID floor was the most challenging. I do remember a gentleman that I had come to know and love over the course of several weeks that was moved down to the ICU. He'd asked me several times to cut his fingernails. That was the only thing he wanted. And I said, I can't do that. It's against policy. I don't know why, but I just can't. But this day, he had been moved down to the ICU. They were going to intubate him, and that typically was not a good thing. And I remember cutting his fingernails and thinking, this is the pinnacle of my nursing career. It was the most humane thing I think I've ever done.
I had a patient, he was on my floor on inpatient cancer care, and he was sick and his cancer had spread too much, and so he went home on hospice, and it crushed me. I had a pretty ugly cry that day.
As a CNA, I had an older female patient who I took care of. I really bonded with this patient. Watching her slowly decline, I really took my time and sat with her and held her hand until she took her last breath. It really broke my heart.
As a young EMT, I spent a lot of time on an ambulance, and I was able to respond to a car accident of a young child who had a severe head injury. I remember sitting there with him in the ambulance as we took him to the hospital, and his head was split open, and it was quite a tragic thing for this young boy and his family, and no one knew if he was going to survive. And as months later, we were able to hear back that this young boy was able to return back to his baseline and be able to function like a normal young boy could. And that's something I still remember to this day after so many years.
I had an 80-year-old man who was a patient, and I got really close to him, and he passed away. I had to clean his body so his family could come see him.
When a woman loses a baby, it's a very tough part to witness as that mom
doesn't get to take home that baby she dreamed about. So to be there for her, to hold her hand, to comfort her and try to be the rock in the room, it's a very tough place to be.
I've been known to sing to patients and sometimes to staff, even during stressful situations that are life and death. If you can sing something like, living on sponge cake, watching the sun bake, all of those tourists covered with oil. Everybody relaxes a notch, and we breathe, and we do our jobs a little better.
On our floor, our patients become our friends and our family. So they're going through so much, you want to make it as a little easier for them if possible. So you decorate their room, or you throw glitter on the ground, or you bring them a quilt to put on their bed to personalize their room. You want to make it a little easier on them while they're there.
I treat every patient as family, really listening to what they want, taking my time and slowing down.
I like to sit at eye level with my patients, talk with them, get to know them, share a couple things about me so they can trust me as they're about to enter this process of delivering their baby, which can be pretty vulnerable.
I like to connect with the elderly, and I like to connect with my patients, of course, but also their families. And I think that is a really important thing.
At LaVie Health, there is no judgment. We just meet all the patients where they're at in life and help them to move forward from there.
We had a teenager recently with significant medical issues. He had to be transferred from our department to the medical floor. And it was very, very sad because it was his birthday when this happened. So we ended up being able to get him a cake, and we had a giant dance party on the unit for him.
I listen to the patient and I listen to the families. The patient and the family know more about them than we do.
I always want my patient to know I am there for them. I'm that one nurse that always wants to spend a little extra time getting to know them and their family.
Every patient needs a kind word, a smile, just an energy that you can bring to the room because they're going through a hard time and you want to be their light in their darkness.
Working with a pregnant teenager who was homeless and just being able to connect her with resources and help bring her family back together really made me feel like I made a difference in her life.
Nursing has completely enriched my life. Being a nurse has brought me so much joy and so much fulfillment.
A friend of mine who was also a nurse was dying of cancer. We prayed together that day, and after that, she said, "Last night, I looked to the corner of the room and I saw a woman, a beautiful woman wearing a blue dress. And Mary Jo, she opened the door and held the screen door open for me to walk through."
Nursing has taught me so much. It challenges you in different ways. It teaches you about humanity. It is a job that is very rewarding.
I love being a nurse. I love my career. I love taking care of patients. And I really like it when the patient walks back in the door and thanks you for taking care of them and saving their life.
Nurses consistently rank the highest on the levels of trust from patients. If we're going to solve the healthcare crisis in America, it's going to be on the backs of nurses that can be trusted. Don't give up. Thank you very much.